Origin Chance Home Suji reaction. This is why didn't Britain have a revolution in 1848? Okay. By the channel History Matters. Loads of European countries had revolution or wars in 1848. So all these countries had revolution around the same time. But the United Kingdom didn't. So why not? Okay. Look, whenever it comes to revolution, it usually goes with some kind of a depression, whether it's economical or, I don't know, some kind of moral, because of suppressions here and there. So if lots of countries went through this kind of a revolution, I'm guessing it could be the economical one. What happened during that time? Did some kind of a war were happening? That's stupid to say. 19th century, definitely there was some wars. But, some kind of economical crisis could have just triggered, right? If people don't have bread on their table, people are going to be pissed. That's what I've learned. So when it comes to Britain, right, Britain is there have been many times where kings were overthrown, right? I remember from one of the videos I watched that there was a brief time where a king was overthrown and one of the noble men of the time who has some pull just became king or emperor or whatever that was, and just, dynasty was stopped somehow, right? Whoever the chain of kings were, but eventually somebody came, conquered back and became king again. So yeah, there have been many kings that have been overthrown in Britain, but yeah, never revolution. I think it's because of how Britain's culture is tied to the monarchy all around, that it's really hard for Britain to go through any revolution, right? God saves the queen, God save the king. So basically it's just, yeah. As far as 1848, I don't know what happened in 1848. I've seen so many history videos. I don't know if I missed something. But yeah, Britain didn't have a revolution. It's not surprising to me. So that's what this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. Check out the reaction. There's a link in this. And check out the end cards. There you'll find, I guess, different History Matters reactions that I did. And yeah, let's watch it.
1848 was a pretty rough year for many European rulers. It saw revolutions in places like France, the German Confederation, the Austrian Empire, and Sardinia. The revolution sought to
revolution happened in France. How the fuck did I forget that?
Living conditions, settle nationalist questions, and fix government deficiencies. And despite having problems with all of these, Britain did not have a revolution or even an attempt at one in 1848. Which raises the question, why? Why was Britain spared a revolution when much of Europe wasn't so lucky? So to begin, despite...
Wait a minute, if I remember correctly, yeah, in 1848, right? That was the year where Germany also tried to, create some... I don't know, there were certain people, basically, who tried to unify German state but somewhat failed around that time, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So there was also a revolution type thing happening there. I'm pretty sure it was in 1848.
The British people shared many of the same grievances with their government as those across the Channel. Industrialisation had seen the rise of poor working conditions. Many were annoyed at the lack of political representation, and in Ireland and Wales there were many who felt aggrieved by the way
Seriously, in Russia communism rose because of the conditions in factories, right? But when you think of Britain, like early stage Britain with the Industrial Revolution, how the fuck they didn't go communist and just revolt at that time? Right? That is a surprising thing, because every time I played Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and you can see how that's captured condition, right? Anytime you watch some gritty old Britain's type of TV shows, right? Like there's a, Tom Hardy show I've watched, Taboo, right? Peaky Blinders, and whenever you see something that like conditions are so horrid, right? With the factories and around them, like it's surprising how people didn't revolt.
Westminster was running things. Much of this sprang from the 1832 Reform Acts, which notably expanded the electorate, but only to landowners and a few others, meaning most men still couldn't vote, which unsurprisingly upset them. Opposition began to organise via working men's clubs, whose members called for more rights and better conditions. Leaders of these clubs, along with some members of Parliament, met to draft what was called the People's Charter. This pushed for the British government to radically change the way that Parliament worked. So after the Charter was published, it was promptly ignored. This was mostly because doing stuff is annoying and the current system worked well for everyone in power, so why bother?
See, that's could be one of the reasons where some people actually cared that everybody votes, right? So I guess these small things like that probably made sure the tipping scale doesn't become too unstable, where people just loses their mind. So I guess that could be one of the reason why revolt did happen, because there were actual people, right? People have with somewhat power actually pushing, so everybody gets right. So people sees it like, oh, look at that, they're trying to give us right, so not everything's bad. So there are people still fighting for us or something like that.
Tensions rose over the following decade, and the government had to deal with riots and strikes across the country. The leader of the Chartist movement, Fergus O'Connor, was elected an MP in 1847 and promptly began to demand change in the House of Commons. Nothing did change though, and when news reached Britain about the revolutions abroad, the Chartists saw their chance. O'Connor arranged for a large march to carry a petition to Parliament, which organisers claimed had over 5 million signatures, which for a nation of 26 million people was quite a lot. The government got wind of this, and remembering what happened in France, they wanted to be sure that there was no threat to the British government or the Crown. And they knew that the presentation to
I love how, he phrases things just one image. This channel is so fucking good. One image and one small, it's like a gift type of thing is enough, right? Walking around the flower field just give you the just right expression, like right feeling, like what they're trying to say. This channel expresses things with such a simplicity, is just awesome.
To Parliament was when the danger of revolution would be at its greatest. Headed by the Duke of Wellington, soldiers were placed all across London just out of sight of the planned route. And thus they wouldn't be provoking anyone, but they'd be able to respond if anything went wrong. The government also hired an extra 100,000 special constables, who were voluntary police officers whose training consisted of here's a truncheon, go hit someone with it. Interestingly, among the 100,000 officers recruited were former Prime Minister Robert Peel and some guy called Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, who would later go on to find gainful employment in France. These extra men would prove unnecessary.
Hold up, what the fuck?
100,000 officers recruited were former Prime Minister Robert Peel and some guy called Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, who would...
What the fuck? Damn, man. This is that Napoleon, right? Who just, just too extreme and wanted to become just the same as the original Napoleon III, or what that was. Why was he in Britain being constable or whatever?
Would later go on to find gainful employment in France. These extra men would prove unnecessary though, since the March on Parliament would never happen. The Chartists weren't planning to violently overthrow the government, and their leaders had faced down troops before, so why didn't they march? It wasn't muskets or truncheons that stopped them, it was the rain. You see, rights and reforms were important, but nobody wanted to fight for them whilst wet. And with the coming of the rain, the demonstrators just sort of went home.
Oh my god, can this get any more British? Oh, goodness me, it's raining. Let's go have a tea. What the fuck? It's time to storm the... Oh, fuck me, it's raining. Yeah, let's just go and have tea in front of a fireplace. God. Man, I love this. I love this so much. It's such a... whenever somebody says, like, history can be funny, I find out that that's the case with many things, right? Certain historical events are really funny.
The petition was delivered to Parliament by a couple of Chartists and was promptly ignored. Turns out most of the signatures were forgeries, and the Chartist movement was so thoroughly embarrassed that it never recovered. The chance for revolution was gone, but in the end, most of the Chartist demands were adopted by the British Parliament eventually. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and a special thanks to my patrons, Jake.
In Britain, oh fuck me, it's raining. I love this shit, man. Man, this was such a good video. I didn't see this, I didn't thought that this video was going to make my day just better, but okay. Why didn't Britain have a revolution in 1848? Because it rained. This is by the channel History Matters. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.